Hey again, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Thanks so much for joining us. Today's session is all about using schedules as a way to create work in your FP system. And today it's going to be me here answering questions, and Mark's going to be doing our presentation. Now, I just want to go through a couple of slides here before I hand everything over to Mark. So again, today is going to be all about writing schedules to profitability. And here's a bit about our agenda. So we're going to be looking at how you can create work in your system by beginning with the creation of a schedule or timeline, how to convert those schedules that you really love into reusable templates, and learning the benefits of this workflow, including what many clients say gives them improved accuracy of estimates. Now, I'm recording today, and as I mentioned, I'll be here answering questions. And Mark, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, you actually sound really clear as a bell. So without further ado, should I pass presentation responsibilities over to you and you can start taking us through this workflow?
Yeah. Yeah, whenever
Okay.
you're ready.
Okay, hang tight, everyone. I'm just going to do some magic here and make Mark the presenter. It always asks me twice, make you presenter. Hang tight here. Here we go. Okay. That should have worked this time. And like I said, I am recording. And Mark, it sounds like we're probably going to follow our usual routine here, and you're going to check in with me regularly to see if we've got some questions worth sharing.
You got it, definitely am. And are you able to see my screen with the function point system open right now?
I do, and I see you've got sort of the business intelligence visuals dashboard going on there.
I do. Awesome. Okay.
Fantastic.
Well, thanks everyone for joining in today. I'm looking forward to kicking off our new webinar series with y'all here today. And just a few things before we do jump in. And I want to get in pretty quickly, but there's a few things I want to mention. First of all, we have actually moved offices. So we are in a new space, and we have a new address, and you'll find that address just on our website there at the bottom, just in our new location there. So you may want to take down that new address. You'll also see it in the signature of our emails and things like that. I think our address is in the signature of our emails. Actually, I'm not sure. Yeah, new address, new location. It's really cool. It's really funky. I think we have some pages, some pictures up on our Facebook page, and which I'll be talking about towards the end here as well. So awesome new space. We're really excited about it. It's pretty wide open. It's a big open space, a big exposed brick, and the wood beams are all exposed and things like that. It's really cool. It's really funky. But I noticed it's a bit echoey, so you might hear a bit of background noise in the webinar today, just as we're getting used to conducting these in the new space for the first time. So yeah, new location. The next thing I want to talk about is just around the next sessions that are happening. So we have another session coming up here next week that is around estimating. And we're going to be talking about estimates today, of course, and how they relate to schedules. But on the 16th of September, same bat time, same bat channel, we are having another session, and then, of course, the following week and the week after that. So I do recommend checking out the workflow webinar series. You'll see this on the login page. Just click on the link in the login page. It'll bring you right here, and you may want to sign up for these webinars right now so you have them all on your calendars. The next thing I want to mention is around our blog. We have an awesome blog happening right now, a series that I wanted to mention. If you go to our website and you select blog, it's going to bring you to our blog. There's actually a great new design to this, some awesome content we're putting here all the time. And a new series that we're doing that we're excited about is called Business Coach's Corner. And really what we're doing here is we're sharing our business coach with our clients, and we're allowing you guys to contact us and ask questions, which our business coach will then write a blog on some of the best questions that we receive. And there's already a few editions of this, so I recommend checking that out on our blog. And if you do have any questions, if there's a topic you want us to write about, then please send it to coach@functionpoint.com. Again, that's just the word coach@functionpoint.com. And we'll get those, and we'll pick some of the best ones and write some blogs on them, and hopefully help you out. And we'll let you know if we do pick yours, so that you'll be able to be aware that it's up and ready for you. Without further ado, let's jump into the webinar. So, of course, the topic of today's webinar is writing your schedules to profitability. And we're going to be looking at a workflow process today. We're going to be focusing on a very specific workflow process that the system is capable of, and talking about how that can help you to make sure that the work that you're doing is more profitable. And then also some other benefits, more accurate estimating, being more efficient and quick at getting jobs open and schedules created. So the workflow process that we're going to be reviewing today, before we dive into it, is going to be around creating a schedule that is a reflection of the work that needs to be done, and then using that schedule to automatically generate an estimate that has a value that comes from the schedule, comes from the information you're putting in the schedule. So that instead of getting a request from a client and pricing it and then creating a schedule based on when you need things done by, we're working the opposite order. We're getting a request from a client. We're creating a schedule for how we think we can accomplish this and when we can have it done by, and also who's going to be working on it, and then having the system tell us, based on your schedule, this is how much you should be charging for this piece of work. And I'm going to be talking about how the system is using the data that you have in here to provide these dollar amounts for you and show them to you. So what we're going to be doing, first of all, is I'm going to look at a job that, as an example, one that I created earlier today, actually, that has a bunch of data in it that'll be an example of a job that we did. We're going to look at its schedule and see what it consists of. We're then going to convert that schedule to a template, so you'll be able to see how you can create schedule templates in the system. From there, we're actually going to create a new schedule using the template, make some adjustments that are realistic for when you're using a template, things like how long is this actually going to take this time and when is the start date and things like that. And then we're going to be generating an estimate from that, and I'm going to be showing where those values come from when you do so, and talking about how that's going to allow you to be more profitable with your work. As Emma said, I am going to be checking in with her for questions that come up periodically. Do please feel free to ask questions and throw as many out there as you want. With schedules, I find we always get a lot of questions, and any that we are able to answer today, we will do so. Any that we may not be able to answer today, we will defer to another time. We'll either take the question down and follow up with you via email, or we might even be able to end it at the answer the question at the end of the webinar if we have time today. But do please feel free to ask as many questions using the GoToWebinar question option in the GoToWebinar panel there, and I'll be checking in with them periodically for those. So without further ado, let's jump in. So right now we're looking at the demonstration version of Function Point. We're looking at some BI visuals on the dashboard. If you're ever looking at one of the webinars and you're like, wow, where is he getting all these? I've never seen these before. I'm getting these panels by choosing to customize my dashboard. There's a lot of options there, a lot of neat filters. I like to plug this at the start of every webinar. Please check it out. There's a lot of cool things that you can create on your dashboard. And you can actually have a whole bunch of different dashboards you can quickly navigate back and forth to. And then up at the top, of course, we have our system's main navigation bar. And the way I'm going to kick this off is by taking a look at a job that I created as an example. I have a job here called Renter's Insurance Brochure. And this is a job that is supposed to be actually closed and invoiced. But it's supposed to represent a job that is completed. And I'm now taking a look at it and seeing how it went. And just using the summary information that is the landing tab of the job's details page, I'm able to tell a few things. One is that this job in total took about 10 total tasks, and all of them have been completed. We estimated 52.5 hours for this. We ended up delegating all 52.5 of those hours. We ended up tracking 51 hours, so we were really close. In fact, we came under a little bit, and none of that was non-billable. We're then able to see that we estimated $5,252 for this. We came out a bit over that, so we went over budget by $500. So you might ask, well, if we came under budget in time, how are we over budget in dollars? And the reason for that is that we might have had staff tracking against this job whose hourly rate was higher than what we estimated. And that is going to be important in today's session, is the concept of, if you have staff rates, how are you taking those into account when you're building out your schedules and your estimates? We can see that we were actually quite profitable on this job, though. So all in all, I'd say that this job would be a success. And this job that I'm using as an example is very simple. It's a brochure for a renter's insurance program. And if we want to see, well, what was required to complete this job, we would look at the schedule and see what the schedule looked like. And this is a really simple schedule I put together. It has 3 categories. It has a design category, a copy category, and a production printing category, each with things that need to be accomplished, staff that need to be doing them, estimated in actual hours, when they're starting and ending, and what the status of those tasks are. So this is a schedule that's gone completely through to completion. It occurred from the 8th of July all the way through to the 30th of July, and the estimated versus actual hours were very close. Now let's take a look at our example, our case scenario. A client contacts us and they're asking us for a new brochure. And I think to myself, well, what they're asking for is actually really similar to the renter's insurance brochure that we did, back in July. And as I recall, that job was, pretty profitable. We came in, just over budget as far as the dollars are concerned. I want to use that as a template for my new work. And I want to use the schedule itself as the template for the work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the details page of this schedule. Notice I'm looking at the schedule's details page. And I look at this and I think, okay, well, I like this. I want to use it. So the way that I'm going to do that is, as opposed to copying this schedule, which I could do if I just wanted to copy it one time, I'm actually going to convert it to a template. So I'm going to choose to convert this existing schedule to a template. Now it's going to ask you if you want to convert the one you're looking at or a copy. And what this question means is that if you just created a schedule from scratch and you hit convert to a template, it'll ask you, do you want to copy this or do you want to use this one? Now, if you've already used that schedule for real work, you'll need to copy it to convert it to a template. So that'll be the only option. Select that. We are now looking at a schedule template details page. So essentially what I did is I pulled up a template, I pulled up a schedule, my apologies, pulled up a schedule, I hit convert to template, I now have a template based on that schedule. There's a few things that you're going to want to do right away. Notice that there is a company that this schedule is related to. It also has a name that is specific to the work that was being done for it and a description. So the very first thing we're going to want to do when we're converting a real schedule to a template is editing those details and taking out what's not necessary. This template is not specific to my client, Great Atlantic Insurance. I might want to use this for any client, so I'm going to blank that out. It could be managed by anybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be me. Also, the description is going to be new every time, so I don't want that filling in either. And the title, well, I'm just going to put this as standard brochure. This is a standard brochure template. Submit that, and we now have our template. There's a few other things we might want to look at. For example, we have these tasks assigned to specific staff people. I have the sketches and rough drafts being done by Eric Ivker. Well, I may not have that specific designer available for me when I want to use this again. So another thing I might want to do when I'm creating a template for a schedule is actually change this from the specific person to the role level. So I might say, well, all of the design work, select all of them, I want all this design work being done by our design team. Except for the approval of the designs by the client, I actually want an account executive to be managing that. Next, the copy work, all the copywriting, I want this all being done by our copywriter. It could be any of them, except for, again, the approval of the client. I want that being managed by the account executive. And lastly, the production and printing, well, I just want this being done by the account executive team. They can handle the organization of the printing. So I'm not choosing specific people because I don't know who it would be. I'm choosing the role levels so that when I use this template again in the future, the system is telling me that this task needs to be done by a designer, this task by an AE, and this task by a copywriter. Now the dates I'm going to leave in there. The dates are old, but they're relevant. So letting me know that, from the 8th until the 11th is about how long it's going to take, 4 days to complete this task. I'm going to show you how these are going to be updated in just a bit. Save and finish. And just to recap, what I've done here is I've navigated to an existing schedule that I used. I choose to convert it to a template. I blanked out the details that aren't relevant to the template, like the specific company the schedule was for, and I updated the name. I then went in and I adjusted any details of the schedule that need to be more generic. For example, who the work is being assigned to the role as opposed to the specific individual. This template is now primed to be used over and over again whenever I'm ready to do so. Before we move on to the next step, which is going to be now creating a schedule and then converting that to an estimate and looking at the dollar values that come through, I just want to check in. Emma, do we have any questions on anything so far?
Oh, hey, Mark. No questions so far, but really liked what you were showing. I loved how you were showing some of that bulk editing there, how you like were grabbing that whole group of like production printing and like changing all of that at once. That's a really cool feature that I think on occasion some people forget or miss that's there. So very cool that you were showing that for us.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and actually, maybe I should go a bit deeper into that, and I'll have an opportunity in a bit when I'm using the templates. That's a good point. I'll touch a bit more on how those bulk editing features work. So we've created our template, and let's say that's the scenario we were discussing earlier. The client has contacted us and they want a brochure, and I think, okay, well, it's really similar to that other piece of work that I did, and I converted that to a template. So now I can use it over and over and over again. So let's say that I'm being requested, a brochure by a client here called North Shore Auto Group. So I'm going to choose to add a schedule for North Shore Auto Group. If I didn't see the company in this quick list, which is a list that I've looked at recently, then I could choose to select them here instead. And I could put any company name and they'll just fill in for me. But let's call this North Shore Auto Group. Let's call it front desk. In fact, let's call it something different. Let's call it 2015 lineup brochure. So brochure, their 2015 car lineup. And I'm going to choose what template I want to use. So I'm going to use my standard brochure template, the one that we just created a minute ago. I can then provide a description. I can choose who it's being managed by, related to an existing project if I wanted to. Click Submit. And we've now added a schedule. And all the information has been brought in from my template. Now, right away, there's a few things that I know I need to change. The dates, and also who's going to be doing the work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to manage. There's a few editing options for these schedules. There's outline, there's manage, and there's full. I almost always use manage. Anytime I'm talking to clients, users a function point, I see them using schedules, ask them, what editing option do you typically use? And most of the time they say manage. Outline is simpler. Full gives you every available field related to a task in a schedule in the system, so there's more options when we select this, but we're going to use manage today. So here's my schedule. Now it's filled in with some details like the roles and also the dates. First things first, I need to update the dates. It's not the 8th of July, it's in September. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit adjust dates. Now, around the bulk editing items, you'll notice that there are checkboxes at the very far left. When I select these tasks, that's letting me choose any kind of bulk editing options I select. Things like this top line here of bulk editing the entire column, or something like adjusting dates or deleting the tasks. These are all applicable to the tasks that we've selected on the left. Now, if no tasks are selected, then it is applicable to everything. So if I want to adjust an entire schedule, I don't need to select any tasks there. All I need to do is hit adjust dates. And I'm going to choose what am I adjusting it to. Well, it's we're in September, so let's say it's starting today. Choose the days of the week that we're working. Those will fill in for you automatically. The fixed duration, basically selecting this box is telling the system allow tasks to drop on weekends and holidays. So typically you're going to want to leave that unselected. Hit adjust dates, and the entire schedule is adjusted accordingly. So a common question I get asked is, if I'm creating a schedule for a template and I know something's going to take 4 days, can I just type in 4 days? You can't. You do need to put a start and an end date. So that start and end date might be the 9th until the 12th. And then in 6 months from now, when you use the schedule again, you would then hit adjust dates, adjust the start date, and it will move accordingly. Another really neat thing that you can do is adjust from the end date. So I just hit cancel there because I want it to go back to July. Let's say that the client says to you, I really need this by October 31st. So what you would do is choose to adjust dates and then choose to adjust it to the end of the schedule. If the end of the schedule is going to be October 31st, when do I need to start it by? The system's letting me know I would need to start it by the 7th of October. So there's some really neat things that you can do there. I'm going to cancel that again and put it to the start around adjusting dates. Let's put it to today's date here. Save and continue. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at who's going to be doing the work. And I might know some of these, and I might not know others. Now, for example, the design work, well, let's say I do know that the design work, for the most part, is going to be done by Eric here. The approval of the drafts is going to be done by a senior person, let's say Chris. The next design work is going to be done by Eric. And then the approval of the designs by the client is going to be the responsibility of the account executive. And I know that the account executive for this client, for this job, will be Leonardo. So I'm going through and I'm selecting specific people. Let's say I know the copywriting work is all going to be done by Jeremy, and the approval by the client is going to be done by Leo. But then the production and printing, the confirming of the specs, the printing of a sample, I can have this done by any account executive. It doesn't have to be Leo, it can be any of them. So I'm just going to leave it as the role level of account executive, and any of them can do that work. It's totally fine. Let's hit save and continue. Now, how the individuals I select here, or the roles that I select here, may or may not adjust the value of the estimate that's going to be produced. And that's going to be the next thing that we're going to look at. Before we go into that, just want to check in. Emma, any questions at all so far?
Hey, Mark. I have a question then that Lindsay also wanted to make sure or ask if at some point you could show us the Gantt, just to show us where it lives, because I think it lives in this area somewhere.
Yeah.
My question for you is something I should have asked and confirmed at the beginning, not to rush you, but when do you think we're going to wrap up today? Do you think we're going to go for the full hour today, about 45 minutes, just so people are prepared if they've got things they're trying to get to later today?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's something that we usually mention at the start.
Yeah, exactly. I think we both just forgot with all the excitement of the new space.
You got it. Yeah, I do think we're going to be able to wrap up at 12:45. Well, 12:45 our time, so
right.
45 minutes after the hour.
Fantastic.
So that's about another 25 minutes to go, and then if there's additional questions, I'm sure we'll be able to stay on after that for another 10, 15 minutes if people want.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark.
No problem. So I will definitely make sure to show the Gantt. Just a little recap again. What we've done is we've taken that template we've created. We added a schedule using that template. We've gone in and we've adjusted the dates. We've adjusted the specific staff people from the role levels where applicable, left them where not. And we're now happy with this. So I selected save and continue, or save and finish, either's fine. In fact, I'll hit save and finish, and that will then show you that we have an option here to make a Gantt. And this will actually fill in with colors and percentages complete as the work is being done. But we can see the hard dates, approval of drafts, approval of designs by clients, and then the progress work that's being done over spans of days. Now, from here, we then want to go ahead and produce an estimate. One actually really important thing I want to mention before I do that is the connection of the tasks to the services. As I'm sure many of you know, every single job in the system and estimate is built on what we call a service group and service structure. They are the line items that make up your estimates and your invoices. It's also the categories that your time goes against. Now, in order for you to be able to have the system generate an estimate based on what you've put in here, each of these tasks need to be tied to a service. And my recommendation is that even if something isn't going to be tracked against, I have, for example, approval of designs by client taking about an hour of one of our account executives' time. But if there are hard dates that are happening where there's no time that will be tracked, I still recommend tying those to a service anyways, just in case some time does go against them. But the point is that in order for the system to generate an estimate with dollar values, these services need to be filled in for every single task. What service does this task relate to? Now, once you're happy with everything, we're going to choose to, up at the top, add an estimate. You'll notice in the action buttons, we'll find a button that says add estimate. If we went the other way around, if we created an estimate and then a job and then a schedule, this button would say estimate details. Instead, an estimate does not exist. Therefore, we're going to choose to create one. And here's where it gets really interesting. A few couple details up at the top, simple stuff. Select the type, choose our contact at our client, enter our delivery date. So the delivery date for this was the 1st of October, based on what the template for the schedule told us. Or sorry, not the 31st, the 1st there. Based on what the schedule told us would be the end dates, based on the template. Fill in the description, but the description will autofill if we already entered one. And then we get the interesting information. This is showing us what data the system is going to use to create an estimate. And what we're seeing here is each of the services that have been selected the task that was connected to that service, the staff person that we chose to be doing it, or the role, and then also how many hours were selected. Now, you'll notice some dollar signs here, or some dollar values. The dollar value is the value of this service in the admin section. What is the system default rate for the service of design when the client standard rate category is selected? So these are the agency standard rates. Now, if I hit submit here, because every single hour here happens to be worth $100 for simplicity's sake, to make the math easy for me, then what we would have is the amount of hours, and I can't quite recall exactly what it was, but we'd have the amount of hours multiplied by $100 and to come up with the value. However, let's look at an example. Let's look at, say, Jeremy here. Jeremy's a copywriter. He's working on the first round of copy and then any revisions for copy. Let's say that Jeremy's a senior copywriter and he has a higher rate, and I want to use his rate. Before I do, let's actually look at what that rate is. I'm going to see that by going into the admin section, and under rate and staff management, I'm going to open this up in a new tab. I'm going to pull up my admin staff list here, and I'm going to look at Jeremy's rates. And what I can see is that for our client standard rate, which is what we selected in the example we're using, for the service of copywriting, Jeremy's value is $125 an hour. The value in brackets is the company default rate, the standard agency rate for, in this case, copywriting, for the rate category of client standard rate. But Jeremy is a senior copywriter. His value is higher. Therefore, if I deselect the aggregate option for Jeremy's time, it's going to multiply these amount of hours by the rate that Jeremy has specifically in the admin section. Furthermore, if I have the role selected in certain aspects, if there's a specific role rate, which again we'll find in the admin section here, under rate and staff management, we'll find an area that says role rates, and there may be different rates for different roles here. If I deselect the aggregate checkbox, which I'm not going to do in the case of the role, then it will use the rate tied to that role. The point is that if you leave aggregate selected, it's going to use the company default rate. If you deselect it, it's going to use the rate of the staff or the role person that you selected for that task. So the staff person or the role would make more sense grammatically. So once I look through this, I'll click submit. One thing I want to mention, and I think I said this in a video about this, is that when in doubt, just leave this entire section alone. You don't need to do anything with it. It's going to calculate everything for you automatically. So you don't need to go around and mess with this. The only reason that you'd want to do so is if you know that, hey, in this schedule, I've chosen some senior staff people, and when I want this estimated, and when I want it priced out, I want it priced out using their values, not the agency's default values or not junior people values. I want the senior staff values. So where I see senior staff, I'm going to deselect those checkboxes. Now when I hit submit here, I'm then going to have an estimate automatically generated by the system. Notice that I have all the services that I tied those tasks to. If in that schedule I tied every single task to a single service, then I would have one service. If I tied it to 20 services across 4 service groups, then I would have 4 service groups and I'd have 20 services. So it just depends on how you tie them together. Now notice the hours. So we have 52.5 hours, and we have 10.5 here and 12 there, and it's multiplying by $100 an hour, except for the one case of copywriting, where we chose the specific person to use their specific rates. And the billable value of this is $3,000 based on 24 hours at 125. So it's gone up by $600. Now let's look at the ramifications of that. When we started this kind of journey, this workflow example, we initially started by looking at the profitability and the health of an existing job. And we used that job schedule as a template, and we created a new schedule from it, and we've generated an estimate from it. Now that estimate has a value of $5,850. When we look at the job that we used as the very first starting point for all of this, what we're going to find is that it has the exact same amount of hours estimated, 52.5, but has an estimated dollar value of $5,250. we ended up putting in $5,762.50, and we've gone over by $512.50. Now, in my example, we invoiced $5,250, exactly what we estimated. So, yes, we were profitable, but there was some money left on the table. But because we used this job schedule as a template, and because we created that schedule as our first step, selected the specific staff people that were going to be doing the work, and then generated an estimate using those staff people's rates and the values in the schedule, what we end up with is an estimate that is, $500 or sorry, $600, I think it was, more than the original. So we've actually made up for that $500 that we left on the table in that first brochure that we did back in July. Now, for any of you listening to this who are thinking, well, I don't have staff rates, so this isn't applicable for me because my agency has a standard rate, so the value wouldn't have changed anyways. There's other aspects of this as well. If looking at your schedule, maybe you took the schedule from the last job and you looked at it and said, well, you know what, we went way over here. Maybe we should add another 3 hours to it. And, we had a task here in the copy round that was completed, 5 days overdue, and you'll see that in the original schedule when you examine it. Maybe you bump out the due dates and you add another couple extra hours there. You may not have just the staff rates affecting things. It could also just be the fact that you're going to adjust hours and values of, values around how long things are going to be taking and when they might be done by. So it's not just about having staff rates affecting this. It's also just about looking at historical completion dates and historical budget versus actual and how successful you were on things, and then using that information to be more accurate in your new schedule, and then using that schedule to generate an estimate, which then is affecting the cost, which in turn, of course, is going to affect your profitability. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add this as a job and then just take a look at it. But before we do, I just want to check in. Emma, any questions at all on anything so far?
Oh, hey, Mark. We have had a couple of good questions. Something you're probably going to address, but I just want to make sure, and Haley reminded me of it as well, is just if you're going to speak to sort of the communication between an estimate and a schedule. It's a bit of a one-way street, I know, and hoping you're just going to address that if someone changes the estimate, if a schedule is affected, if someone changes the schedule, if the estimate's affected, et cetera.
Yeah, that's a really good question. On that topic, and that's actually something I probably wouldn't have brought up. So thank you for reminding me. It is mostly one way. There isn't an option to have the estimates update the schedule, I believe, but you are able to have the schedule update the estimate. And actually, I'm going to ask you to help me out with this one. Am I correct
sure.
on that? If you're making updates to the schedule, you can have it then reflect on the estimate, but not the other way around.
You can, yeah, absolutely. And most of our clients are happy with that. They do have them sort of living separate lives. And so be assured that if you do go and adjust the estimate in some way, that you're suddenly not going to have the schedule change. That is a good thing. But if you do update the schedule and you do want the estimate to change, you can tell the estimate to do so. It won't do so automatically. There is an option to tell the estimate to sync to the schedule if needs be. So we do see that happen on occasion, but nothing's going to happen automatically, and it is that one-way direction. The schedule can push data to the estimate, but not the other way around.
So let's take a quick look at that. Let's say that we looked at our schedule and decided here we need to bump up the design hours here from 12 to 15. So let's go ahead and bump that up. Now I believe if we go back to our estimate details page.
Yep, exactly. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. If we get into the estimate, in the services page, perfect. And if you hit edit services, you should see, or we should see, that sync estimated hours. So that'll, as it's telling you there, redo the sync.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then it'll resync up. It looks like because it looks as though we still have Jeremy selected here, but we don't for the others. So that's all going to be maintained. And then I believe if we resync this, it should just jump to 15. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's what I was
yeah.
looking for there. So that's awesome.
Perfect.
So I guess just to recap, thank you very much for that, Emma. Just to recap, one-way street from schedule to estimates, and you do need to choose to sync that. If you're going in and making adjustments to the estimates, first you'll need to go in and manually update the schedule, or you can just go to the schedule and make the changes there. Was there a few other questions, Emma, as well?
No, I think that's great. You're still going to show us the Gantt at some point, I believe, unless I missed it, and you did, which is possible. But no, that's great. And Haley, hopefully that answers your question. Most of our clients, I find, are happy that it's set up that way, because the estimates, or at least with the clients I've worked with, once the client has seen that estimate, it's kind of going to stay the same. So it's nice that you can still adjust the schedule as you may need to, but that's not changing the client-facing estimate.
So we did check out the Gantt, but let's, instead of looking at the blank one, let's actually look at our existing one. So I'm going to go into our schedule here. I'm going to go into its details page and produce that Gantt there, and you'll notice that we have more data in this one than we had in the others.
Very nice, Mark. Sorry, I missed it before. I've been busy making sure everything's going along smoothly here.
Yeah, no problems, no problems. So we take a look at our job here. And let's actually jump into our lineup brochure, and we have our jobs details for that. So we have our job that was generated, from the schedule through an estimate. Job has been generated. It's now an open job, and we have a schedule established. We have an estimate established with a financial structure that consists of the services that we tie to the tasks in the schedule. The hours that we put in, notice the 15 for when we did that resync, and there's our estimated value. And of course, as we track time against this, our summary information is going to fill in, and we'll see more values that'll make it look similar to the other job that we looked at a minute ago when these values start to fill in here. But that's essentially the process. I mean, it's just about putting the details in for a schedule based on perhaps a creative brief or conversations with the client, based on information that is going to affect when things will get done, how long they're going to take, and then using that schedule to automatically generate an estimate. It's a bit of a reverse of the workflow that a lot of our clients are used to, where they're generating an estimate first, and then maybe opening up a job and putting in some briefs, and then based on all of that, they're then generating a schedule from it. Whereas we have worked with clients that are used to starting off with a schedule. We've actually worked with agencies that were used to starting with an estimate, but after seeing this option, this workflow option existing, then transitioned into creating schedules as their very first step, and then having that flow through and automatically generate an estimate. And we find that when it's done well, if you're getting in good templates and you're putting in all the details in your schedule, it can allow you to become more and more accurate with your estimates as you continue to use that process.
Hey, Mark, can I interrupt you with a question, please?
Yeah.
Great. We had one come in from Teresa, which I thought would be worth showing. If you could just quickly show just adding a schedule from scratch. You don't have to fill it in any great detail, but just showing that process, that would be, because you showed us one from a template, but if you could show us just making one from nothing, that would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Let's say I want to put in a schedule. I'm going to make it pretty simple just for the sake of time. But
yeah, exactly.
Let's add a new schedule from scratch. I choose to add a schedule. And we'll call this, we'll call it the webinar schedule. Excuse my typos, which you can right-click. All it's useful for myself. Unless you have to get at least close. In fact, I don't even know if webinar is a word. I think it's, oh no, it's not underlined. There we go. All right. We'll move on. So choose the client it's for. I'm going to say it's for a client called McDonald and Company. Choose a related project if there is one. Give it a description. Notice I'm not choosing a template. I'm just creating it from scratch. Click Submit. We're now on our Schedule Details page, and notice that there are no tasks here. So I'm going to choose to Manage, just like before. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to Add Tasks. Now let's say I want a schedule with two categories. I want a design category and a copy category. So what I would do is I would add in a couple tasks here, and I'd call the first one, design category, for lack of better imagination, I suppose. Copy category. Now I have my two categories. What I would do from here, and just so you know, there is no real right or wrong way to do this. It's just this is the way that I prefer. I create my categories, And then I'm going to click the plus icon for the design category and add a line item below it. What I'm then going to do is select the drag and drop arrows, which collapses the item, and I'm going to indent it, let it go. It's now a subtask of the design category. I'm going to do the same with the copy category. Add a line item below it, select the drag and drop arrows, indent it, let it go. It's now a subtask. And then we'll call this, design task 1 and copy task 1. And we'll save and continue. And you'll note you'll be able to see the color categories there, that kind of that gold, yellow bar, and then the item below it. Now, the category level is the sum of its parts. So notice that it doesn't have any fields here. If I were to add another task and call this the design task 2, and we give both of these, maybe 10 hours each, save and finish, notice that the design category is 20 hours total budget. And it's this, again, it's the sum of its parts. There are no editable fields in the category. Now, if we put in a start date of the design task 1 of tomorrow, end date of the 12th, the next one starting on the 15th and going until the 17th, then when we look at this at the category level, it starts on the 10th and ends on the 17th. So again, it's the sum of its parts. So what I like to do is I like to create the categories first, then add in the subtask. When you click on a plus icon, it creates a new line item at the same level. Notice it's creating new tasks that are a direct subtask of the design category. What I could do then is call this, design subcategory. And I'm going to make this a subcategory by selecting the drag and drop arrow for the item below it and indenting it, and it's now a subcategory. And I would call this, design sub cat task 1. And so on and so forth for as many subcategories as I need. And notice the color coding. Yellow for the master category, then blue for the sub, and it will continue like that. And you can collapse these to show the amount of detail that you'd like. Now, what's most important from here is for the workflow process that we've been covering today is that these tasks are then tied to services. So we might tie, all of these design tasks to the design service and the copy task to the copywriting service. We'll say, maybe 10 hours for each of these two. It's going to be up to 40 hours. Maybe we have some dates here. Maybe we don't at this point. Maybe I don't really know who the work's going to be done by, so I'm going to say, well, it's all going to be done by our designer group, except for the copywriting task. That'll be done by one of our copywriters there. And save and finish. So we've created a really simple, really kind of straightforward schedule. Up at the top, I'd select to add estimate. And maybe I don't want to use the specific roll rates here, so I just leave that section. I'm just going to use the client standard rate of $100 an hour. Choose our type. Maybe it's a banner. Enter the due date there. So, maybe we don't know when the copy is going to be done, but we want this whole thing done by the 26th. Update the description. Submit that. And we have an estimate of $4,000.
Amazing. Thank you, Mark. That's really good. And Teresa, hopefully that answered your question just about seeing one getting built out from scratch there.
Awesome. So, that finishes off everything that we have in this particular session. We're going to keep this open for questions. I just want to just mention that next week what we're going to be doing is reversing this order, and we're going to be looking at it from the other direction. So the concept of creating an estimate and then having that generate a schedule and having all the information fill in the schedule based on what you've put into the estimate, and then how you're then, the options for adding a schedule as a next step after an estimate, maybe before or after you have a job open. So the concept of creating a schedule before the job is created, so that you can get an idea of how long things might take if they were to be approved, and then how everything then gets activated when that job is open and what that process looks like. So it's more of a traditional workflow process that we'll be covering next week, whereas today was a bit more of a kind of a new way of looking at things. So if you attended today and this one was valuable for you and interested you, I highly recommend attending next week. It's going to be a similar theme, but just a reverse order.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark. Well, what I'll do is probably steal presenter status back from you if that's okay. And I'm just going to show my own screen there, show my screen. So it should just be advertising there what our next session is, a few ways to connect with us. Thank you so much for mentioning that Coach's Corner stuff first thing. That's really, really neat. And Roberto is a very smart guy. You and I have had the benefit of having some one-on-one sessions with him, which have been really cool. So everyone should be taking advantage of that. I guess, Mark, we'll leave the session open for another 5-10 minutes if people have questions to ask. And otherwise, I'll have the recording up and available on our help site probably this time tomorrow at the latest.
You got it. And I just also want to mention all the social media stuff. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, connect with us on LinkedIn. Do whatever it is that you do on Pinterest. I'm sorry, I don't really know. Pin us on Pinterest. Follow our YouTube channel, all that, and subscribe to our RSS feed. RSS or RS?
RSS.
All that good stuff. We're pumping out lots of stuff. Emma puts out pictures of cute pets all the time.
Oh, I do. That is true. Well, our clients provide those, thankfully. So yeah, if you have cute pet pictures, then send them my way. That's our favorite thing. Excellent. Well, thank you, Mark. You were a star as usual.
Well, thank you very much, Emma, and thank you for all of our attendees today. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to check this out. And as always, please feel free to contact us and let us know if you have any requests or suggestions for future sessions.